What is up, and welcome back to the Talking Nutrition Podcast. Today we are joined by my coach, my mentor, Cody McBroom. What's up, Cody?
What up, man? I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to dive into stuff, and like always, we always have great chat. So I think whatever we dive into today, man, it'll be good. I'm excited.
Yeah, dude. So I wanted to do something different for this podcast. I kind of pulled a few kind of quotes, statements from Cody's Instagram, just so we can go back and forth. One kind of like a little bit of an issue I currently have with the state of social media. It's just like there's wild shit on there, you know? And it's just getting worse, I feel like. What do you think?
Yeah, man. It's social media is a funny thing. I think it's something that has given me so many opportunities. So like in one sense, I love it, and the other sense, it's a few things. One, it's a great marketing tool. Two, it's also a great place to educate. Three, it's the wild, wild west. So you really never know what you're going to get. And I think that's the worst part of it, is because anybody can be a professional, quote unquote, or an expert, quote unquote, on social media. And that's an issue. And it's also something that people hide behind like a shield. And I think that's a big issue too. There's certain people who keep it real and they say what they feel. I know I'm guilty of, for a period of time, almost worrying or fearing what I might say, because people get offended so easily at everything. And especially here in the United States where I'm at. And so I feel like, and I say it like that, not knowing what goes on in other countries, to be honest with you. So maybe it's that way elsewhere. But for a while, it was even scary for me. I'm like, man, I don't want to, I have a responsibility to put food on my family's plates, but also on shit. Now we have 12 people total, like 12 other families' plates, so it's like I can't say the wrong thing. And at a certain point I just stopped caring, because it's so much harder to filter yourself from being real than it is to just be your most authentic self. And funny enough, and this is good advice for anybody who struggles with that too, everybody respected me more, appreciated me more. Nobody really got mad. People who got offended weren't people who were going to be in my inner circle. They weren't people who were going to buy from my company. They weren't people that I needed to associate with anyway. So it worked out for the better. But it's just a crazy time, like even not too long ago, I posted that thing about trainers, you should be fit. And like that triggered a lot of people. And I'm like, how is that even controversial? It's like, this is what we do for a profession. What do you mean that's an issue? So yeah, it's a crazy time, man. It's a lot to keep up with nowadays.
I feel like, because I saw that as well, and I saw you post about the backlash as well, but I agree with you. And I just talked about this with someone else on a podcast, like last episode or two episodes ago. It's like, I do agree, because like you should do the actual work yourself. You know what I mean? Sure, like looking jacked is not necessarily like a reflection of your skills, but it does show that you take your own shit serious. Mm-hmm. And that it's like, hey, like I'm actually doing the thing myself. I'm not just, sitting here like keeping all the knowledge to myself and like being like, hey, you just do this. It's like, no, like we should,
Yeah.
I feel like the people who usually get offended with that stuff too are probably the people you kind of like talk about in that statement anyway,
Oh yeah. And they're the people that comment and they get mad and they get triggered. And here's the thing, man. Like, this is the same thing with science versus anecdote, right? If we look at what makes a great evidence-based coach, it's somebody who understands the science and has applied what makes sense practically, right, in the field. So they have the anecdotal experience and they understand the science, and they put those together. Now you're evidence-based. I mean, we were having a conversation the other day about reverse dieting, and it's the same thing, right? We see the Matador study and the diet break studies, and they have a pattern of doing things, but you and I apply it in different ways, because it's the concept of increasing your calories to elicit changes that matters with a reverse diet, not exactly how you layer those things in. And ultimately, when I say things about, being fit as a trainer and stuff like that, look, you can be book smart, but do you have the self-control? Do you have the self-discipline? Do you have the self-willpower? Do you know how to eliminate self-doubt and create more self-belief? All these things lead to self-respect, which ultimately has more self-appreciation, and eventually you transform yourself. And this, I talk about this with my team. We're all about self-formation, which is transforming yourself through learning how to have self-discipline, self-belief instead of self-doubt, self-control, all these things, right? So when people hire us, they don't want to just understand how to lose fat and lose weight. They also hire us because we need to help instill those traits in them, because those traits carry on. You know, like you're going through a cut right now. You've had to grind your teeth for a lot of those things, dude. And those things apply to your business, to your relationship, to your interactions with clients, like to all these other aspects of life. You know, as for me as a parent, they apply a lot, you know, because I got to have self-control. I got to have self-discipline. I got to understand those things. And it's those things that I think the trainers and the coaches who are not fit, who don't practice what they preach, that's what they don't have. Yet that's what the clients really want. You know, they need to understand the science. They need to know the knowledge. But let's be real. Like, the reason they hire us is because they're not at the place they want to be in. And if I was like, hey, you need to be in a calorie deficit and you need to eat vegetables, they're going to be like, duh, I know. Now, it gets deeper than that, right? We like to go into the weeds, and there's a science to it. But at the same time, the reason they got to the negative place they're in is because they didn't have all those traits and characteristics, right? So it's our job to bring them out. So a little bit of a rant, but I think that's the problem with people getting triggered about those things. It's like you don't have the result that you preach you can create because you don't have the skills, the traits, the characteristics that allow you to execute on the science you quote unquote know and understand. And that's the big issue there, right? And you know, the last thing I'll say about that is anybody who gets offended by that or gets triggered, and I said this in some of my posts, and one lady, shout out to her, she was a trainer and she said she was overweight, and she was like, this triggered me, but that tells me I need to do something about it. So thank you. I was like, kudos to you, because realistically, if you get triggered by something, you know, even myself, if I get triggered by something, I stop and I try to think like, why is this making me upset? Because there's going to be an underlying issue or root cause or insecurity behind it that I need to work on myself. You know, it's not the person's problem for offending me. It's my problem for getting offended. I need to figure it out. Right.
I feel like if you get triggered by something, there's like something to it. You know what I mean? Like it's there's probably at least a bit of truth in there. And it's usually 100%. The shit that you don't want to admit, you know? And I mean, there's so much to unpack here, but like, that's the stuff that we should be addressing. Because I mean, we talked about this today actually on iMessage. It's like, yes, there's the knowledge and the techniques for training and the reverse. You know, there's so much to that and the research. But at the end of the day, like, the stuff that really works is basic. The stuff that really makes a difference is you just doing that thing over and over again and actually sticking with it. So let me actually pull up the first kind of post, which was a thread from you, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. It's like, don't let the boredom kill the progress you could be making. Stop changing shit just for the sake of changing shit. Keep it simple and repeatable. Then work hard and be patient, while remembering that the most successful plans are typically the most monotonous. No, sorry, there's a spelling error there.
Monotonous. That might not be a word.
Sorry, yeah. My bad. No, that's my bad. Autocorrect. But it is about that, right? It's like, at the end of the day, it's developing those skills and just making sure you stick to the process.
Yeah. It's, yeah, dude, like, I think, you know, success is really mundane. It just is not. I think that people get excited about, I mean, understandably, things that are exciting on paper, the journey, the process, the outcome, right? The before and after is like, whoa. And look, we're getting ready to do this marketing campaign. And so I had to pull all these before and afters, and it's wild to see them, and it's really, really cool. But if you just see that and you don't see the simple, difficult, tedious things that they did every single day, you're missing a big part of it. And it's the person that's willing to do the mundane shit over and over and over again. That's the person that gets to achieve the success and gets to reap the reward of the result in the transformation. Because, you know, people say this all the time, success is boring, right? It's not. Success at the end of it is very fun. And if you understand the process, you can have fun during the journey too. There's no reason why mundane things or repeatable things, repetitiveness can be fun. You know, Ed Milet has a really cool quote. He says, winning is more fun than fun is fun. And it's kind of a tongue twister. And he was joking, but I grabbed on it. I was like, I love that. Because the reality is like, look, maybe I'm doing the same thing for day 117, right? But I keep getting better and the results keep improving. Or if you're working on your business, you're making more money, you're helping more people, you're creating more content, you're losing more weight, you're building more muscle, like whatever it is, winning is fun. It's just that what gets you to win isn't always fun. And if you're willing to accept that, I think that's the piece, right? I often talk about the 3 A's of success or transformation, and it's awareness, acceptance, and then acceleration, right? And you could even throw something in there and throw adjustment, because obviously before you can accelerate, you got to adjust. But if somebody first becomes aware of where they're at, what's not working, what's in the way, whatever the issue is, then they accept that that's the state they're in, because that's a big piece of this, right? People just can't accept that, like, hey, and this sounds bad, but like, look, if you just started, you suck. You're going to suck. You're going to suck for a while. Like the first time you do anything, like I think we're podcasting right now. My first podcast was terrible. Your first podcast was probably terrible too.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And that's okay. It's the people that are willing to suck at something and they just accept it for what it is, who can really start to adjust things, right? We become aware of what the thing is. We accept where our current state is. We adjust the plan so that we can accelerate towards success. And most of that, until you get to the acceleration part, isn't exciting on paper, right? It's just that's why people like detoxes and resets and challenges and all this stuff. But the reality is, man, it's like you got to do the boring work, and if you want to reap the reward of success. And I promise anybody listening to this, I promise you, whatever the thing you're after is, let's just say fat loss for the sake of the podcast. When you start seeing the result, that shit feels good and it's fun. That's exciting. Like, I don't care what you put on paper and how boring the plan to get there looks. When you see the result, that is exciting, you know? And I think and the reason I wrote that post is because I think a lot of people, they're like, is it time to change up my training program? And it's like, why? Are you progressing? Yeah. Are you getting a good pump? Yeah. What's the problem here? I don't understand. Do you have any aches or pains? No. Okay, well, then no. And granted, look, like if you've been doing the same thing for months and months and months and you need to make some tweaks because the training is boring to the extent where you're not motivated to push hard, 100%. Change minor details, keep the building blocks, right? Keep the main stakes of the program, tweak and change little things so that you can continue to progress and be excited and motivated. But like, for example, a weekly update as a coach, that's not a weekly adjustment, it's a weekly update. Which means you don't got to adjust your clients' macros or calories or cardio or anything if they're progressing, right? Don't fall victim to the idea of like, hey, I'm checking in. What are we changing? Nothing, which is the best news that I can give you as a coach, right? That actually means we're doing really well. Unless we're not changing something because you're not consistent, which means we got to change a whole lot, but we got to change what you're currently doing because you're not following what I laid out for you, right? So a little bit of I don't know. I feel like I just vomited on that one, but man, that one I just posted it like yesterday. So that was, to me, it was.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was looking for something else on my phone and I stumbled upon that. It was a note that I took, and I was like, oh shit, this is gold. I don't know why I didn't post this. I was like, I need to throw this on a thing real quick and post it. But it's so true, man.
Yeah, and you know, like we both get that, of course, especially with newer clients. It's like people do expect like the weekly change. And you know, in the beginning, there is a lot to learn, and we're diving into tracking and education, and there are a lot of things to discuss. But once you get to that point and you're like on a roll, it's like, hey, keep going. This kind of made me think when I wrote this down to when you were my mentor in 2021. I was still fresh, you know, I started in 2020. Got a mentor like right away then, Sam Miller back then. Then the year after you, and it's like, as much as I learned a lot, at one point it was just about doing the work, and that's exactly what we talked about every single week. And I will admit, in the beginning, I was like, I'm stoked to see what's next, and then it was the same shit, you know. And then again and again, did you write the blog? Did you do the newsletters, the posts? That's the shit that makes a difference, though. Like it doesn't always feel like, hey, we're really moving forward right now. But when you zoom out, it's like 3 years later now, like that's the stuff that made the difference, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like people don't notice that either with their fat loss stuff. It's like when you're in that moment in the beginning, especially, it's like, again, yeah, again, you know. But once you, like you said, you see the results, you get the momentum, and it's really, you really see your body transform. Like that's where you get fired up.
Yeah, man. It's so cool to see where you're at now too, because you're crushing it, dude. Like you're doing really well. The company's killing it. You're hiring coaches. Obviously, I'm working with you again on your training and nutrition, so I get to see a bit of it live now, and it's just so cool because what you were doing is you were sowing seeds, and then it was time to harvest, right? So this is kind of like an old biblical way of looking at things, but sowing seed for people listening, it means planting seeds, right? As a farmer, but when you plant seeds, there's an old parable, and they talk about like it's so crazy because actually like I literally read this morning, so it's so perfect, but it was part of my just daily reading. It's a parable and a story about a farmer, and the farmer was spreading seeds, and some fell onto gravel, some fell onto like thin layered old dirt, and then some landed on like fresh ground, good dirt. And it was talking about the story of how these seeds that he was sowing were growing differently over time, right? Because the better the dirt, the deeper the roots, the longer and greater the harvest will be. It's like a whole point. So if we look at you 3 years ago, 2 years ago, however long that was, it's crazy to say 3 years ago.
Yeah, it is.
We look at that. Time flies, man. But we look at that, and it's like, that's a long time. But for us to go, hey, like, let's sow the seeds right now, and let's do it right. Let's lay the foundation. Here's what we need to do. And then at a certain point, it's like, hey, and look, this is for people listening. This is just my integrity, and I'm not the only one who is like this, but it is few and far between. I'm like, you're paying a lot of money for accountability right now. And you did for a while, because it's important to have accountability and to do the work and to have somebody who you respect, who's going to teach you and answer your questions along the way, but who's also going to push you to keep going and doing the things day in and day out. Keep sowing the seeds. Like this ROI is long term. This is delayed gratification. Nothing quick's going to happen. Like the blog, right? People underestimate those. You write an article right now, and it's like, okay, now what? Nothing. Like nobody's going to see it for a while.
Now you wait a year.
Now you wait. Dude, I still get applications from blogs I wrote in 2013, 2014. It's crazy because as Google and SEO and rankings grow, and we have 18 different social medias come and go along the way, Google never changes. Websites never change. Like SEO is still there. People still go to Google to search for their problems. And guess what? We're the kind of guys that are going to pop up because we sowed seeds years ago. And so for people listening, I said this in one of my fat loss videos recently too. If you're on a journey right now, what you're doing today is making up the results you're going to see, not tomorrow, not next week, but in a month, 2 months, maybe even a year from now. Like you're sowing seeds right now that are going to really be for the long term. And if you zoom out and you think of that, everything you do is laying seeds for a future harvest, right? And if you think of a harvest, it's a season, it's a long time. And that's very relative for fat loss. It takes a while. It's not a quick fix. It's not 30 days. You plant seeds, you got to wait for the right weather. You got to water the seeds. You got to protect the plants, protect the ground, protect the soil, care for it. It's going to take a while. And in business, it's like 4 or 5 times longer than fat loss, let's be real. But now you have the ability to step back and see the business grow, and you can start to see the fruition of what you did years ago. And that's going to last a lot longer than some TikTok video, that come and goes. And here's the deal too, like business wise, and like social media there's different trends, there's different algorithms. Like I would never blame the algorithm. If you're not getting good engagement, you just need better content, and you need to find the right people to get in front of. Yeah, things change. The algorithm changes, things that's trending changes. You just got to adapt with that, and that's what it is. But the most static aspect of business is going to be word of mouth, referrals, and SEO, like realistically, especially for online businesses. So if you don't have SEO, you don't have people who can find you through Google search, website search, and you don't have great results where people are telling other people about you and referring you, that's your marketing issue. It's not what's trending on social media. You don't need to come up with the next cool dance or water bottle flip video or some shit like that. And, and like that shit will get you views, but it also is not going to bring you people who are interested in what you do. You're trying to help people and impact people. There's a better way to get in front of them, Yeah. But it's kudos to you, man, because it's so cool to see all that come to fruition now, and that's such a perfect parallel to success in anything we do, including parenting, including marriage, including business, including fitness, fat loss. they're all the same. You're sowing seeds today for future successes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and before we even like tie that back into, because I know we're kind of going back and forth from like business to fat loss and stuff, and we'll go back to fat loss in a sec. But even there, dude, like I knew I was gonna, or let me put it this way, I knew I should probably start a podcast at some day, some point. But I didn't do it, Why not? Because it was uncomfortable. And it definitely was very awkward in the beginning. But we're now like 123 episodes in, I think it is. I mean, you're like 1,000 or whatever. More?
Almost 900 something.
Yeah. No, but like also there, dude, like because we were mentoring and you told me like, yo, just do it, right? And same thing with the public speaking, like, yo, step into that gym and just talk to people. And guess what? I went back to that same gym to do like 4 talks since then, But it's like you gotta take that imperfect like first step. Like you said, like be okay with sucking, and then just do those basics, planting those seeds, and it does become easier. And the same thing goes for the fat loss, And like actually, I'm gonna put up 2 posts from you, because this is exactly again what we're talking about. You said like the action taker beats the perfectionist every time, and I love that because it's so true. People are fucking overthinking shit all the time. So no, I'm gonna wait for after vacation or where there's New Year and whatever, It's like no, you should maybe just start drinking more water today. That could literally be it,
Yeah. Imperfect action is always going to beat procrastination, which is what I'm getting at in that post, obviously. But I think that's the problem. If you wait for the perfect time to do something, if you wait for the perfect scenario, the perfect anything, it just doesn't exist. There's always going to be something that you could pick apart and claim it's not perfect for. And like I learned this the hard way as an entrepreneur. It was like I would get frustrated that like my schedule would get thrown off or something. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a coach, I have a team of 12. Like shit's never going to be, there's always going to be something. So it's like, hey, you signed up for this. If you know what I mean? Like this is part of it. Part of doing this is adapting. So for anybody listening that wants fat loss, guess what? There's going to be a birthday party or a work thing, or there's going to be one of your meals goes bad. Dude, perfect example, Sunday. I literally just prepped all my meals, put them in my truck. I'm driving out of the gym because I always drop them off on a Sunday. I'll take care of some errands. And then I fill up the fridge. That way Monday I come in, I don't got to worry about stacking them anything. I can just come in, everything's ready. Like I just love the workflow. They were all in a bag and like stacked up. I open my truck door and they all fall out the truck. Glass, Tupperware shattered, green beans, rice, turkey everywhere. I'm just like, oh, okay. So what did I do? I figured out something else to eat. Because like at the end of the day, getting upset doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't, like now I don't go, well, shit, I guess I'll start my diet next Monday because my meals got ruined this Monday. No, like control what I can control, right? If I go back, I probably could have not been, I was blasting this this Russ album because I just started listening to it. And I was taking turns a little too hard, and obviously the stuff in the back of my car shifted. I could have controlled that, but I didn't. Now I'm in a situation where I can't control that there's everything around me. I can just control my next step, which is figuring out what to do. Because like negative energy, worry, doubt, like those things don't serve us. So you just keep moving forward and you just keep taking action, imperfect action, because if you wait, if you procrastinate, if you wait for the perfect time, you just never get started, or you overcomplicate it and it doesn't work out the way you want it to anyway. You know what I mean? It's like if you really think about, and this is the crazy part that I always tell to people, like if you wait another 2 months, 3 months, 4 months until the perfect time, let's say it is damn near like it is a better time, you're going to improve your results by 5%, but you also just stop doing shit for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. That delay sets you back way further than that 5% would have helped you. You know what I mean? And it's just the best thing you can do is just start now and invest your full effort, right? That's another thing. I posted this quote yesterday. John Wooden, famous basketball coach from back in the day, very, very wise guy, wise man with a lot of good philosophy, like driven quotes. And he said, if you don't have time to do it right, when are you going to have time to do it again? Right? He said to do it over. And it's so true too. People will they either wait and procrastinate and never do it, or they just rush into something. They don't put their full effort. And it's like, I mean, if you're rushing it, what makes you think that you're going to be able to do it right the next time? And now, because you rushed it, you're going to have to do it next time, or you're going to wait. This is especially a case with nutrition. And you're going to realize that, oh, you can actually be pretty flexible. Oh, it's really not that big of a deal. Oh, I always have something going on. There's always going to be something. So it's just about taking action and just getting uncomfortable, And I know I keep tying it back to business, but it's hard for me not to as an entrepreneur. But also, to me, I just talk about success, personal development and success. That's what it's all about. Fat loss is personal development, and it will make you be more successful. Wealthy people are typically healthier and more fit than unwealthy people. Why is that? It's because they invest in everything they do. They care about their body. They care about their life. That's what leads to success. A lot of people get fit before they get successful with financially, because the traits and the things you develop in the process of getting fit translate into the workspace, right? In the workplace. And then you end up growing there. Guess what happens? You become more wealthy. It's just a natural cause. So I tie these things together a lot, but ultimately it's like, that's one of the most common things. They just take action. Half the time you can't figure out how to do it better unless you figure out how not to do it the first time anyway. So just get out there and give your best. For you doing the podcast, man, it is uncomfortable. Getting in front of a camera, that is uncomfortable. Like, we just did a video yesterday. We shot it, so it isn't out yet, about the best way to market yourself. And it's like, hey, if you're worried about social media, if you're worried about marketing, you're worried about all these different things, and you're not getting phenomenal results, start there. Be a better coach, not a better business person, right? You got to learn how to actually get results, because in my experience, word of mouth, referrals, getting great results, that carries you quite a bit. That's what builds momentum. Marketing doesn't build momentum. Marketing comes in where, and this is for people listening, I've been running a business for quite a while, full team, everything. We're just now starting to go, okay, I think we're going to play with some ads. I think we're going to run some ads and test them and see how we can do this stuff. Because advertising and that kind of marketing, that's for scaling a company, not for building momentum, right? You got to start there. So it's about getting great results and putting that effort in on the front end and just getting good at what you do and taking time. We were making this video, and this is why I brought this up. I had to pull some B-roll for my editor, and I went back in my phone, dude, and I found these videos and these pictures of me speaking at seminars, like I told you, from literally 2016, 2017, then 2019, at all these random gyms. Some of them I have no contact with anymore. Some of them I still have clients from those places because I planted my seeds in those places. And I've been working with some of their people off and on, my team has, for literally years now. I have content I created a decade ago when I was young, barely had any tattoos, fresh baby face. And I was creating, honestly, some of it was terrible. And some of the stuff I was doing was, I wouldn't recommend anymore, but I'm watching it, I'm like, man, that is so cool. That's a decade in the making, And I think that's what people underappreciate. And that's also people will say well, how do I get a physique like yours? Not that I have this insanely impressive physique. I'm like, man, I don't say this to clients because I don't want to discourage you, but sometimes I start with train for 14 years every single week. I think I've taken a few days off here and there in 14 years because I love this stuff so much. Now, does it take 14 years to do this? No. I could have got way more sleep. I did the worst shit you could do for a while. I wasn't doing it right for the first, 3 to 4 years. I was figuring stuff out. But my point is be ready for the long haul. Think long term. Set a stupid astronomically high goal and just start working towards that. You're going to accomplish so much if in the process of that, because like you said, you're taking action. You're not waiting around,
Yeah. And at the end of the day, also you just do it. And sure, like you said, you're going to make some adjustments. You got to course correct. But even when it comes to the posting and the marketing and all that, you have to do the thing like that, period. That's the only thing that will get you better at it. Mm-hmm. You can read the books, you can, do the courses, whatever it is, but you have to do the actual thing. So going back to nutrition, you can watch all the TikToks and the reels and whatever, and even YouTube and the blogs, which is all stuff that we do, and listen to the podcast, but it's you don't get results until you start drinking the water, right? Getting the steps in. And this is from your post. It's like, you said, if I wanted to lose 20 pounds as fast as possible, 2024, here's what I do. Drink a gallon of water per day, hit 10 to 15K steps per day, cut your calories by 20-25%, eat up to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight of protein, right, per day, 3 to 5 cardio sessions per day, per week, 30 to 40 minutes, low intensity, right, low intensity, sleep 6 to 8 hours a night, and I follow a high protein, high carb diet. Like, that's the actual secret, right, to results. Mm-hmm. Doing that shit over and over again.
Yeah. And that seems like a big list. So, and you know what's funny about that? So one of the comments was like, damn, I'm surprised you didn't put strength training. I'm like, oh yeah, like that's
yeah, okay, yeah.
That's one of them.
And lift weights.
I didn't even put it, but
technically for the fat loss,
Yeah, and I mean at the end of the day, that's like you're trying to maintain muscle while you lose fat. But
yeah, true.
Point being is anyway. It does seem like a big list, and I posted something kind of similar not too long ago, and said in the caption it was like, this is not supposed to. This is like what I would do. This isn't supposed to be like a sustainable plan you do forever. And there's nothing wrong with having a fat loss phase where like, hey, this is a temporary thing. I'm going to do all these things. It is hard. It is take discipline. It is like a long list. Damn, this is kind of tedious. But guess what? That builds character, and it's going to get a faster result. I would rather have somebody go 110%, give it their all, get so much out of it personally and mentally as well, and only do it for 3 to 6 months of their life, by the way, which is a very short period of time. Then you go into a maintenance, and you don't got to do as much cardio. You don't have to worry about hitting your steps as often unless it's easy and natural for you to do. You don't have to be in that deficit anymore. Maybe you don't even have to track macros all the time. You can just track calories and protein, or you can just kind of eat how you know you're supposed to eat. If you eat the same things kind of day to day, and then every once in a while you just check and make sure that you're on track with your macros. There's a lot of ways to do it. But my point is that I think people get so like hung up on two things today in today's like industry or like the fitness world, right? And it's one is that it needs to be so flexible and so sustainable, and it kind of drives me crazy because it diminishes people's ability, self-belief, because it makes it seem like, oh, this is too hard. You can't do that. We're gonna make it easy for you. It's like, no, I believe in you. I think you can actually do more than you're giving yourself credit for, and you're capable of a lot. Like, let's push it and let's build some character through this. And what we do right now doesn't have to be sustainable, because the truth is there's studies that show a little bit more of an aggressive approach and a faster rate of loss in the beginning, and then a proper, exit strategy, reverse diet, whatever you want to call it, long-term and short-term leads to better results. They have multiple studies that show this, where it's like they have a group that just goes slow and steady for a long period of time, and then they have a group that goes hard at it in the beginning and then tries to sustain it for the rest of the time more intuitively. And the group that goes harder in the beginning and then transitions into a maintenance phase loses more weight overall and keeps it off in the long run. So it's like you get better results up front and you get better results long term. So it's like, and granted, there's sometimes this changes depending on personality type, but most people that's what it's going to be like, So yeah, we should be flexible, but we should also know when to turn the flexibility dial up and down. And it doesn't need to be quote unquote rigid, but structure is good. Like, we want that, and that's going to lead to better results. You know what I mean? So, and again, like this long list of things, I think a lot of people try to do as little as possible. So, and I want to preface this and say, I believe in like the minimal effective dose, right? We should, like, for example, let's lose body fat while eating as many calories as possible. I agree with that. I think that's a very smart and healthy way to go about it. However, I also think that getting after it and pushing it is really smart to do sometimes. So for a lot of people, I'm like, hey, I agree. We should maybe we should keep it slow and steady. But for other people, I'm like, hey, yeah, let's add cardio. Yeah, let's add some supplements. Yeah, like invest in yourself all the way. Let's get the most out of this. Because if you halfway go about it, you're probably not going to get as much success out of the process, and it might take longer. We can get there faster, and we can probably have more reward, because when you get that instant result or that quicker result, you also have a higher drive internally. So you're more motivated to stick to it and do the work and get the result long-term as well, which is a huge benefit that people forget. And for coaches, it's important to explain this and to explain the timeline to their clients, because there's a lot of times where coaches will put people in a deficit and they just leave it at that, and the client's kind of like, well, this is life now, you know. And it's like, we've had multiple conversations, for example, in your cut, where we didn't know the exact deadline, but it's like, hey, it's getting close. Hey, I think we have about this long. Hey, we're gonna probably play around with the diet break around this point. We're gonna have to consider reversing soon. You know what I mean? Like, I always start having those conversations weeks before that time comes with clients, because then they mentally prepare for it, and they know that there's like, oh, this isn't my new life now. I'm not eating in a deficit forever. It's like, no, like, we're gonna move out of this. This is what it takes to get to the result you want, you know?
100%. Dude, there's so many things to unpack here. I want to point out. First of all, I think I didn't copy that part. I think it also said, and then not changing shit for like X weeks. I think you said like a whole bunch. But I will say this. So in a way, so yeah, yes, it's 7 things. Okay, 8 with the weightlifting. I still don't think that's that much, because drinking a gallon of water, we should be doing that anyway, and that should be kind of like installed, right, over time. So if that's taken care of, that's taken care of. Like, that doesn't change. The protein, like, once that's up, like, we just keep that up, right? The sleep, we all know we should be doing that, you know? Sure, like, with the cardio and the steps, like, those are going to have to go up. But, like, it's not even that crazy. Like, if you give yourself the time to work on those basics. But now going on to that next part, like, and I love that you mentioned this, because I was going to bring this up. Because I was going to ask you, like, what's your thought on this whole, you know, it has to be like a lifestyle. Like, you know, these days you're not, hard work is like a taboo thing now, you know? Like, you're not supposed to say dieting anymore. You can't use the word restrictive. And, right, it all needs to be too flexible. It all needs to be like this lifestyle thing. But a bulk, a cut, like, those things they come with sacrifices that you're going to have to make. Dieting is restrictive in nature. Like, you're literally restricting calories. Like, that's how shit works. There's nothing sustainable about fat loss, the actual phase, right? Or bulking, because it's not supposed to last. You know? That whole lifestyle thing, like, sure, like, the habits we want to keep up, but that's maintenance.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many people, like, come to us and be like, hey, I never got that exit strategy. And now we're stuck trying to get people eating enough. You know?
Yeah.
Dude, like, that's the hardest shit even compared to fat loss, I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree. A lot of times it takes more discipline, you know, and more thought process about, you know, the nature of what you need to do and how you need to do it. I think that, so first I'll say, I think it looks like a lot on paper to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right. Number 2, lifestyle is all relative. You know, people are like, well, how do you track macros year round? How's that lifestyle? I'm like, well, what's a lifestyle to me can be different than you. I'm not saying that tracking macros needs to be a lifestyle. I'm saying eating like an adult who loves their body is a lifestyle. Honestly, like, does it need to be high carb, high protein year round? No. Do you need to track macros in order to have a good calorie balance year round? No. That's an easier way to do it, in my opinion. If it's my lifestyle, in my opinion, you know what I mean? Like, it's all relative. If somebody was like, they have cats. I don't like cats. How is that a lifestyle? I could never live with cats. Why? Because there's something un-lifestyle oriented about cats? No, I'm allergic to cats. I don't like cats. Like, that's all it is. So this is the same thing. I think people get so like sucked into trying to speak their opinions as if they're facts onto other people's lives. And it's just like, come on, like, this is just ridiculous. Like, this isn't a religion. It's a way of eating. If you care about your body, you should eat healthy. Look, like, you want to live longer. You want a strong bones, strong tendons, strong ligaments, strong muscle, like all this stuff. You got to eat a high protein diet for the rest of your life, literally. Like, that's what it is. In fact, if you want to live longer, you do have to implement a calorie deficit every once in a while. You want to know why intermittent fasting creates autophagy, which increases your lifespan? It's because the calorie deficit during intermittent fasting causes autophagy, not because of fasting, right? Same with blood sugar, insulin sensitivity. A calorie deficit creates all these things. If you do it long term, it creates more stress through cortisol, adrenals, all these kind of things than it does, like it counteracts. But periodically, it's good to go on a diet every once in a while because the deficit will lead to better health, right? So, and you actually can't even say that about surplus. If you want to build muscle and get big, then you need the surplus. But like, it's not really going to increase your longevity. Your body doesn't necessarily want or need more muscle tissue. It kind of weighs you down. That's just what we aesthetically desire, right? So realistically, you have to like cyclically diet in order to live longer and have a better life. You have to eat healthy. You're an adult. You got to eat vegetables. You got to eat protein. Like that's part of this whole thing of like living life. You're gifted the gift of having a life and having a body that you get to take care of. Why are you treating it like shit? Like that's really what it boils down to. Do you have to hit 15K steps a day? No. But if you want to live longer and be healthy, you should probably get a good amount of steps in. You got to, right? Do you need to do 3 to 4 days of cardio? No. You want to maintain aerobic function? Do 1. But like, to your point, all of these things can be like dials. Oh, you want to get lean for summer? Cool. Let's crank it up. And then it's like, oh, you just want to like be healthy and live long and enjoy the hours you have on earth because you want your body to function right. Let's dial them down. This is part of the game of life. It's required in order to have a functioning, healthy body, you know?
Yeah, dude. Let's leave it at that. I think we touched on a lot of good stuff. Definitely a lot of good rants as well, but I actually do have to wrap it up in a sec because we have a challenge Q&A coming up. But dude, thanks for coming on again. It's always good to be in touch, you know, and we could keep going for like another hour, and we probably will at some point again. But for our listeners, especially the new listeners, where can people find you? I will make sure to drop that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it, and definitely down to come on again. It's always a good time. Everything is at you can just Google search my name or Tailored Coaching Method. You know, we Instagram, we're posting every day. We got a podcast that comes out every week, YouTube every week. Obviously, we coach just like Johan does, so we do the same thing. But we just, you know, we put out a lot of free content. So if you want to learn more about what the kind of dieting, mindset, training, all that stuff that I push and my philosophies on that stuff, just Google search them. There's so many platforms we put out content that's all free. It's easy to access.
Awesome, dude. Good to have you on. I'll make sure to drop that in the show notes. We'll see you next time. And to our listener, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to drop us a quick review on Spotify or Apple, and then we'll talk soon.